are. What's up, everybody? We are live, I believe. Can you all hear me okay? Everybody in the chat, spam them emojis if all is good in the hood and you can hear me loud and clear.
Yo, yo.
What's good? We have a team of 5 tonight. We've only 3, but the other 2 are coming. They're on the way. But yeah, please let us know how it sounds. That would be splendid. Thank you, Aziza. That's great news. So guys, we hear an English fat dude according to Twitter cats. I love it, Omar. I love it. Thank you, my dude.
Wow.
I love it. Thank you, Omar Shahab, you legend. I appreciate you, brother. To the people who are watching, a very good evening to you all. This is the Company of Gamers podcast, and it has been a long, long time coming, let me tell you. I am so stoked that it's finally happening. Would help if I actually play the gameplay, wouldn't it? Yeah, teething problems. It's early days. So
show Wooly some love here for like getting this thing started. Like everybody, just give him a compliment of some kind. Like, way to go! Thank you for getting this together. Like, we super appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you guys very much, and thank you, Fornatron. Guys, let me tell you, right? So this podcast has been a clear vision that I've had for over a year, and it's been a podcast that I want to bring together both the professionals and the passionate. Sorry for my phone. If you can hear that, I'll mute it. And when I say the professionals and the passionate, I mean us. How did you describe it, Fornatron? Us, like just us noobs, us normal people.
Yeah, scrubs.
That's the one.
Plebs.
Us scrubs and plebs. Us average, ordinary gamers who just love playing games. And it's our passion, right? And the professionals, i.e. the developers and the computer engineers and programmers, i.e. the people who make things happen, the people who get shit done, and the people who are also passionate too. Very passionate, in fact. So passionate that they've pursued their dreams in this shit. So with that being said, guys, we have such a panel, and it is going to be fire, because we're going to be exploring primarily this topic. Does cross-gen really matter? Will it ruin these games? And we've had a lot of outrage recently about this, and you're all well aware of it. We were discussing it on the Salty Gaming podcast. So yeah, anyway, let's get this show on the road. Let's introduce the panel. The others are coming, and when they come, we'll introduce them as well. But first and foremost, Deezy. The dude, or Sev. What's good, brother? Tell us about yourself.
Hey, Willie. Thanks for having me. Hey, folks. What's going on? Can y'all hear me all right?
Can hear you loud and clear.
All right. That's good. What's up? All right. So my name is Deezy. I just go by Deezy. And I am a game developer and game designer. I code for a team called Fireslug. We are a brand new independent studio, and we're working on a title called Ashbourne. We released 2 demos based on massive feedback, and we've updated our game. So at the end of this, I'll drop a link for you guys to check stuff out and give us some feedback, because the team would really love it. But yeah.
Just got that's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Carry on, mate. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I gotta thank Wooly for having me here. It's a major honor, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, I've got to thank someone in the chat, Saltiest Gaming, because my brother, he delivered in spades. He said he would support me and help me in getting this podcast up and running. and my days as he helped me, he would we would voice chat and screen share, and he'd talk me through how to operate OBS. And let me tell you, OBS is a load of BS. It's flipping difficult. It is difficult to operate, to learn, to get my head around, and he pretty much showed me all the cheat codes in the book. So thank you, Salty, for all your help. You're a real Chad, bro. You're a real G. And speaking of Chad's, Faunatron, you just delivered possibly the best promotion video I've ever seen. It was freaking dope.
Yo. Dude, you know what's dope? Yeah, we're talking about fire here, and like, dude, your profile picture, like, I was just like, damn. Like, dude, like, why do we not like make this a common thing where we just compliment our dudes and just be like, yo, bro, you're looking sick these days? Because Wooly, bro, you're looking sick these days, bro. Like, then like, I knew I had to incorporate that in there somehow. And man, Deezy here is just being so modest. Like, the dude is just like, I've only met him like in the last 15 minutes. I'm already like, okay, this guy's so much smarter than me. Just don't say anything dumb. I'm definitely one of the plebs here. If y'all haven't heard of me, I'm a small-time YouTuber. I make videos that I think are funny about gaming and just like streaming, and like I'm more Mac centric. I'm an Apple dude. I know, hate on me, whatever. But yeah, no, I'm super stoked and happy for Wooly for getting this together and inviting me on to be one of the first guests. So I'm really, really, really grateful. Thank you.
Bro, you're making me emotional. God damn it. I can't deal with this. I need tissues. No.
The inaugural stream of this podcast is pretty lit.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for the other two panelists to get in and give their insight on everything too.
100%. So guys, let me stress, right, this is very early days. This is a podcast that is obviously going to undergo teething problems, but with those growing pains and teething problems is going to result something truly special, let me assure you. The reason why I've set up this podcast, it's been on my mind for over a year now, and it's to bring together the professional and the geeks, the gamers and the passionate, and the guys who develop these things and know about this stuff. So another panel member we have is Leviathan Gamer. You no doubt will have heard of him. He's a real G and really knows his stuff. We also have Michael, but he's no show tonight, and not sure how he is, but hopefully we'll have him on next week, or if he jumps in at some point tonight. Either way, guys, please share this podcast out, and let's get this podcast started. Let's get it going.
Woo!
Let's go. So we'll get it started first with proper intros, and I know we've introduced you a bit, but I just want to hear from you, Sev. What are you developing at the moment? Tell us about it.
All right. So you guys want a granular thing? Am I allowed to talk about it? Yes, I am, because we put out a demo tonight, actually. About 5 hours ago, we released the second version of our demo. I'm working on a game called Ashborn. It is an action RPG, a fantasy action RPG, where the elevator pitch is you Pokemon people. Literally, you acquire people from different towns, different settlements that you explore, and you recruit them, and you spec them out with different specs of weapons, and you take them into battle, and you fight against the Ashborn. And as you're fighting against the Ashborn, you realize that there is a more nefarious plot that's happening, and it is up to you and your team to scour the overworld and figure out what this plot is and stop the Ashborn takeover. And that's pretty much it on a simple way of describing what the game is. Granularly though, like I said, it's an it's an action RPG, fantasy RPG. Um, it has a really deep class system, which we're currently working on right now, where the weapons dictates your style of play. Um, it also explores a little bit into the procedural generation. So we have, or we're working on what we call a dungeons, and the dungeons are procedurally generated. You'll get quests to recruit your people that you want, and every person that you recruit has an intro quest or an intro story that's unique to them. And these quests unfurl, and they always lead you into some sort of dungeon. And these dungeons uh, scale up in difficulty, and they reward you with good loot. And completing those dungeons, you're able to recruit your team, and you'll figure out what they have affinities for, how they work with other team members, and how that dynamic affects the greater economy around the world as you play through Ashbourne. Yeah, so the team at Fire Slug is pretty busy, and they're working their hardest at getting all this stuff done. So I do encourage you to follow Fire Slug on Twitter at Fire Slug Studios, and keep up with our promotional materials and download our demos.
Well, let me tell you, bro, I've played it for like 30 minutes. I played it today, in fact, and I'm really freaking impressed. And that was only a combat demo. But it sounds like there's so much going on to make this a really ambitious title. I'm currently right now just getting up a little video clip. Oops. Excuse me. Forgive me for that.
Spot everybody. Sorry for being late.
Sup, my dude? We have Gaming Despair in the house. I'm going to show you guys a quick clip of this guy's.
Easy, you had me at action RPG, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, it's pretty
Well,
awesome.
there's a Mac version and a Windows version currently available.
There we go.
So
Check this out.
you guys can try it.
So this is the game.
It's just the Resident Evil that's playing though.
Oh, it'll change.
All right. So how long has this been in development for?
We've been in development now for just a little over a year and a half, and we've really started to make headway in this. Like I said, our first public demo was released on May 12th, so it's gone through a whole lot of changes, a whole lot of iterations to get to that point. And since then, we've had tremendous feedback, mostly positive. Of course, there's the negative stuff. There are people who are just brutally honest, and we love that too. So they've all, told us, hey, some things about this suck, fix it. And that's just how gamers are. Fix it. And fix it is literally to them a press of a button, fix it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we appreciate all that. It's been rewarding, and we're looking forward to your feedback on Combat Demo version 2. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can always find a way to give constructive feedback without just being like, yo, it sucks. Like, say the part that you think could be better and what you think they should do to make it better, or like what would make it better for you. And that way it's something that they can action a little bit better than, I don't like this part, or I don't like that.
Both are welcome. Trust me, it works both ways, because there's some people who can't really put it into words, and for them, it's as easy as saying this section sucks. And if you comb through it and you step back, sometimes you're able to dissolve and find the granular things that like, okay, there's an aspect about this that just makes it off. And it's up to the game designers to go back in after playing and seeing and whatnot to say, okay, this is off. Maybe this is what
Deezy, we got a good question in the chat here. Where is this available for everybody? Like, where can we get it on both platforms?
You want the actual link, sure. So you can find this directly at www.
I can copy the Twitter.
Right now.
I'll post the Twitter link here in the chat. Here you go, guys. That's Fire Slug Studios. I really like the kind of animated logo as well. It's pretty dope. Just want to say hi to everybody in the chat. Luca, lovely to see you here. Yash and Luca, everybody, you probably already know who she is. She is a very popular streamer in the community and all round awesome. Awesome
by the way, is that Jez?
Where's Jez?
No, I thought Jez was here. My bad.
Oh, Gaming Despair, you're here. Good to see you here, brother. So
yeah, I'm here.
Yes,
you dropped in like 5 minutes ago.
In the house. So yeah, Gaming Despair, what's good, brother?
Yeah, man, just been fucking chilling and shit. Just looking at like small little filler games and stuff like that. Just looking through PS Now and PS Plus, and then I'm hoping to get like probably another 5 more platinums and stuff, and trying to get up to like 180, but it kind of seems a little impossible. So,
you know, there, mate. Well,
I'll try to make it there.
I mean, for me, like this podcast is going to be every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern set time. So maybe just keep it to a set time, and with that consistency, people will know when to go. I know it's difficult if you've got a shift related job. That's why for me it's 1 a.m. The podcast is at 1 a.m. So crazy.
No, it's because, like, dude, I have to take my real estate exam tomorrow, and I was just like, you know what, man, there's no reason for me to be working in this shitty ass job, right? Plus, I was arguing with that one motherfucker that I'm supposed to beat the shit out of, so there's that too, and then so I'm trying to figure it out.
Fair enough, mate. I just ended up blocking. But you ain't got time for people like that, dude. But anyway, moving on. It's great that you're here, buddy, and our boy Faunatron. It's good that you're here. So guys,
thank you.
Leviathan is on his way. He's going to be another 5-10 minutes. We are talking today about cross-gen, because let me tell you, right, I'm just gonna it's been like nagging me how much the fanboy community has been. I mean, developers at Santa Monica, Sony Santa Monica, have been receiving death threats and really, yeah, just crazy, because people are so pissed, so upset that God of War is going to be a cross-generation title. Also, I mean, Gran Turismo, there's new news has surfaced that Gran Turismo 7 is now a cross-gen title, as well as
hey, Wooly, can I cut you off real quick? I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to cut you off, brother. I know that King Lamar, the humorous L-Man, he said he wanted to join the show. I don't know if you want to bring him on,
sweet.
or
all right, yeah, Lamar, brother, we were gonna have you on next week. Maybe you misread what I put, but sure thing, my dude. If you want to jump in, can drop you the link.
He was just saying that he didn't get the Discord invite or something like that, but he was willing to join. I mean, it's up to you, bro. It's your show, man. I mean,
yeah.
I really can't say anything about that.
I apologize, Lamar, dude. I didn't see your comments. Yeah, I'll get dropping you a link.
Oh shit, nice, man. I love getting voices. But yeah, man, but you know what? About that whole cross-gen shit, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, like, honestly, when you really think about it, it's not like, like God of War or like GT7. I mean, they're not going to have something where, like, you're going through like a different time and then automatically getting into a different world and stuff like that. I mean, God of War and GT7 and Horizon Zero Dawn don't need that anyways to begin with. Ratchet and Clank is just it's special in its own way, right? Because of the architecture. They're fully focusing on it. That's why it's not on PS4. So it's me like I don't understand why people are making this such a fucking big deal and then sending out death threats. That shit is weird as hell, bro. That's just weird.
I couldn't believe that people were like, yeah, they were like, oh damn, did you hear the news? They're like, oh, that those games are gonna be on PS4 as well. They're like, like way to go PS5, what a waste of money. It's like, are you kidding me? It's just like these games are still gonna be so good on your PlayStation 5, and I think I can't speak for this because I don't have any insider news, and I'm like I said, I'm a pleb, so maybe Deezy could like put some insight on this. But I felt like these games had a contingency plan to co-develop for PS4 as well. And with all the shortages of the consoles, Sony's not able to get as many PS5s out to everybody as they wanted to. And then with everything being like all the chip shortages and stuff, and they were probably forecasting the supply to get a little bit better, and that's just not going to happen. And they're probably like, okay, you know what? We got to make these games cross-gen so more people can play these games. And that's probably, like, I feel like that's why they got delayed even further. And I just think they're still going to look great on your PS4. Like Sony's proved games can look awesome on your PS4. Like The Last of Us Part 2, that game looked amazing. Ghost of Tsushima, that game looked amazing. And they're probably going to perform similarly. They're going to be like 30 frames and like they're going to look decent. But then on the PS5, it's going to be like an entirely different experience with like smooth 60 frames, maybe 4K ray tracing. I also just didn't see the big deal. I was like, all right, cool. These games are just going to be available for more people.
See, the issue that this presents, shout out to Leviathan Gamer. He is in the panel. What's good, my dude? Good to see you here.
Just a little triggered about my food because I ordered it at 5 p.m. expecting it to be here. It took until around 7:10 to finally get here.
Well, that sucks. Oh, dude, a podcast on an empty stomach is a no cast. It's a no cast. So I'm glad that you finally got it. What you having? Pizza?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Can't beat pizza. We'll intro you in a second, my dude. But I just want to bounce off what you were saying, Fornatron, is that we're gonna go in depth into how much of an issue this is in terms of core game design. But you were saying, how the fact is on PS5 it'll look a lot better, and all that's true. But an argument a lot of people are saying is, but it won't be designed. It won't be designed in like next gen. It's just going to be a PS4 game with an extra lick of paint. And the thing is, guys, is we have to remember, some of these games like Gran Turismo, it was only decided to be a cross-gen game recently. So that tells me that it was designed specifically for the PS5, but is scalable. And Horizon Forbidden West developers, they said that they didn't even have in mind the limitations of hardware when coming up with this game, when designing this game. They just had a shitload of crazy, amazing ideas in what they really wanted to be in a game to make it as fun as possible. And sure enough, they were able to implement all of those ideas and more. That tells me that this game was designed exactly how they intended it to be, not designed whilst keeping in mind the limits of a console. They designed it and then they were able to scale it down. I appreciate, though, that is not going to be the case with all games that are cross-gen, right? There are going to be limits. But let's get Leviathan introed, because you guys probably know him. Leviathan's got quite a stellar reputation in the gaming community on Twitter. He's a very clever guy, knows his stuff, to say the least. So Leviathan, tell us about yourself, man.
I actually don't know anything about Leviathan Gamer, but man, dude, I'm gonna give you a follow, man.
Sweet,
that'd be greatly appreciated.
I've posted everybody's handles in the Twitter handles in the description below in the YouTube video, so give them a highlight.
Y'all can hear me? Hello?
Can hear you loud and clear,
can hear you.
Lamar. Welcome, brother. So Leviathan, what's up, dude?
Not much. Been pretty busy. So I'm Leviathan Gamer. I have a background in computer engineering, specifically in design and computer architectures, and that has led to me also having to understand how game rendering works and the overall process of designing computer software. So I have a lot of like background and experience with this kind of stuff. Plus, I have a lot of math and science background, so a lot of this stuff comes fairly easy for me.
Yep, he's a logic man.
Yep.
He's a logic man. Some of us are designers, and then the logic comes after when you have to hammer it in your heads, which is kind of my background. I'm far more of a designer first, and a coder second. And the logic I have to really hit my head against the wall to understand. And sometimes I find myself writing it out in if then statements and how do I attack it before I'm able to implement certain things in code. And so some of the coders, the more advanced coders on the team will be like, why are you taking so long with something so rudimentary? And I'm just like, yo, it doesn't work like this for everybody. You guys are logic first, I'm design first. And that, I think that's why I appreciate the struggles of a coder, of a programmer, of an engineer, because they're attacking things and they'll come up with quick solutions, and I come up with those solutions afterwards, but it's only after a lot of thinking and breaking things down that I do it, because everything that I do, it's based on a design, and the first question is, well, why don't we just design it like this? And then they're just like, well, you can, but you have to go through this, and this, and then that, and then you instantiate this, and that's kind of how the design process goes for every kind of thing, whether it be an app or, a video game or something to make your radio work. There's that process of it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, man. Like sometimes the way I look at it, man, is like, with games like Horizon Zero Dawn. I mean, I'm not gonna say they're colossal franchises, right? Like God of War, and they're big franchises. But like the way I look at it is like, you know what? It was probably a smart business move. You know what I mean? So, like I said before, aside from Ratchet and Clank, but the whole cross-gen thing is just, I don't understand what's going on with that, man. Like, it's just crazy to me.
It's a very funny thing to see people carry on and write articles about selling their PlayStation 5s because suddenly,
I smell bullshit.
Suddenly a popular title that they were hoping was going to be taking full advantage suddenly isn't. And you have to, like, I got to sit back and laugh a little bit, and because a lot of these knee-jerk reactions are coming from the very same people who have been harassing Naughty Dog, Kojima Productions, and a shit ton of other, AAA studios that are like, they're harassing them, telling them, well, if you're not going to give us a dedicated PS5 thing, give us a 60 frames per second patch so that we could play our PlayStation 4 games at 60 frames per second. Like, look at the meltdown that happened for Biomutant, right? It's a backwards compatibility issue thing, and you want to see how people were throwing wrenches and everything at that small team. There are only 20 people working on that thing, right? And the way they got such vitriol simply for saying that we couldn't have our backwards compatibility patch ready for PlayStation 5. So we're just giving you the PS4 and the PS4 Plus version, or Pro version as they call it. And literally, Game Boost already gives you the 60 frames per second thing anyway, but they just wanted the 4K upgrade. And that's literally it, right? So I gotta laugh and scratch my head when people say God of War, I'm selling my PS5 because Ragnarok is now cross-gen, but then literally a month ago they were celebrating
Last of Us 2 patch.
the Last of Us 2 patch, which is literally just a backwards. It's the same thing for like Ghost of Tsushima and Days Gone. It's literally just a patch to unlock the frame rate. It isn't anything else. There isn't anything substantial about it. It just runs the PS4 game at a higher frame rate. And
Most people just need to sell their PS5. Like, just go ahead, go sell it. Like, there's plenty of people out there who will buy it
people
from
who
you.
actually need one or want one.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then go buy a PS4 for $300 and then lock yourself in your room and then turn off your internet because we don't need you anymore. Like,
There's several people who, want a PS5 right now.
About several, I would say so. Like, there are games that I enjoy on my PS5, like Demon Souls Remake and Returnal, like, have been so amazing. And then there have been plenty of games that I've enjoyed on my PS4 that are just a completely different experience on my PS5. And they were just like you're talking about, Deezy, like, they're just like little spec bumps that the console automatically enables. And like games like Dark Souls 3, games like Sekiro, like those games, like they just play so much smoother on my PS5. So just imagine a game that is capable on both consoles, but has features enabled that truly unlock on a PS5. It's still going to be a next-gen experience. And it's kind of like all those cross-gen games that are already out right now. Like, do they suck because they're available on PS4 and Xbox One?
Look at Horizon Forbidden West. It honestly cakewalks Returnal, in all honesty, and
it does. Right, it does.
So it's like, what do you want? What do you want from these developers?
What I want for the gaming community to understand is that when we approach anything from a cross-gen development standpoint, the very first platform that we're dedicated to making sure works is the bottom platform, because the weaker platform has to be the one that we convince everyone, right? Because it is going to be so much easier to push things and turn things up on a rudimentary scale to 11. You look at Horizon, the jump from Horizon to Horizon Forbidden West, and you can literally see, just how things are working with that. And people are saying, well, it's not pushing the console. You're damn right it's not pushing the console. It's a first generation release. You look at Miles Morales on PlayStation 5 and compare it to Miles Morales on PS4 Pro, and there is a host of things that the PS5 version is taking full advantage of. The loading screens are gone. The hair texture, the hair rendering, the introduction of machine learning and muscle deformation, the ray tracing, the ray traced lighting, the reflections, all these different rendering techniques that go on and layer on and emboss the PlayStation 4 version are taken to 11. And that's just the rudimentary stuff. Those are the things that you could see. You're not able to see some of the more fine-tuned or minute things that are under the scope, things that would make a PlayStation 4 choke for trying to attempt it is easily accessible, and you're able to just do so much more. So like cross-generation things, I think, especially with PlayStation anyway, is they make sure that the PlayStation 4 version is squared away. Horizon Forbidden West started its life as a PlayStation 4 title. They started development almost immediately after.
We should probably go into the development process, because I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes. Because people assume that these games started recently.
No,
but
they really didn't start recently. Those games started on PlayStation 4. Similarly with God of War, it's shorted.
I heard
It's
that a lot of the games start like 3 to 4 years into development before PS5 is even like close to being announced.
yeah, 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 and that's literally it. That's literally it. You
So
know,
production on these games started. So like, take for example Horizon Forbidden West. There's the pre-production, production, and post-production phases of its development cycle.
right?
The pre-production side of the development, where they lock down the game design and what platforms they're targeting, that happened before Zero Dawn even came out. They were locking that stuff down. So that was decided back in 2017
Yep.
or maybe into 2018 a bit.
Yep.
So that's long before they had any knowledge of the PlayStation 5 specs or even when it'd come out, because that's just too soon to have guaranteed specs. So it'd be a huge risk to just drop PlayStation 4 and try to fully utilize hardware you don't even know about.
That's a really important point, guys. I mean, this is like we don't even think about this shit us gamers, right? But you like you just pointed out, it's crazy. It's crazy that the developers don't receive the trial boxes, what do you call them, the prototypes, until like they were receiving them like a year before release max, right? These games started like 3 years prior to PS4's release, so PS5's release. So you can't expect developers to make a game for hardware that they don't even know what the hardware will be. And who was expecting the PS5's SSD at I/O to generate 22 gigabytes per second throughput?
These things are Go on, Lev.
Yeah, they could expect an SSD because Sony's probably been planning to put an SSD in the PS5, but to play it safe, they'd expect something either a SATA SSD or the cheapest budget NVMe SSD, because you want to play a conservative one predicting specs like this for your game. Because a perfect example of a game that didn't play conservative and it paid for it was Assassin's Creed Unity.
Facts.
At launch. It ran at like 20 FPS because they pushed further. They were expecting more powerful CPU cores than what ended up in the Xbox One and PS4, and they faced the consequences of that.
You see how it's something that's still that Ubisoft is smart not to repeat, because that game overshot on a lot of things, like the density of population, of crowds and everything, and the amount of physics calculations that they're doing in Unity has not been replicated
to this day. Yeah, to this day, I'm blown away by that game.
By any other Assassin's Creed game. The lighting, the lighting rendering, that game uses some insane tech, and it's only just now running pristinely, or at least at the level it should be, on an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5 by, backwards compatibility, basically just steamrolling through everything because they have more capable CPUs. So that's a perfect example of how you overshoot because you're expecting something and you don't profile your tools and whatnot, and you rush your launch. But like I said, game development is never so rudimentary. There's always steps, and every developer, at least I think Sony especially, how they're handling things is they're making sure that the bottom platform is going to be the one that runs perfectly well, because anything the PlayStation 4 can do, the PS5 can obviously do it better and with more ease. Point to shove, I'll give you a perfect example. At GDC shortly after Horizon Zero Dawn launched, one of the very first things they discussed was that their memory budget capacity could not support underwater, for their first Horizon, could not support underwater exploration. So because everything below the subterranean rendering line blew up their budget, and they just didn't know how to do it. They had to iterate. And you look at what they're doing now. Horizon Forbidden West has underwater things, and that isn't something that they implemented simply because it's from the PlayStation 5 and then they ported it down. That was determined when they were designing the sequel for the PlayStation 4, and they had to use a totally different water rendering system and a different approach to memory budgeting so that that particular thing can work. And one of the first things I saw when Aloy dived underwater was how seamlessly she transitioned underwater and whatnot. And I guarantee you, the first person that team went to was Naughty Dog to get some of those things situated, because their first game didn't have it, but their second game, Forbidden West, does. And you want to see how that exploration and how they manage their memory budget. The Last of Us Part 2, The Last of Us Part 1, Uncharted 4, they all have that sort of thing where they go underwater and explore, and they're using very rigorous rendering budgets to cut out certain things that don't need to be rendered. They're using different meshes, and it goes really, really, really granular. But these are just the types of cuts that they have to make on PlayStation to get these things to work at a 30 frames per second. And on PlayStation 5, they're using something totally. They could just take off all the things. They're no longer using rudimentary stuff because their memory budget is much larger, and they're still not hitting up against the upper limits of that because the SSD works like RAM in most cases if you're using it efficiently. So, when people are going nuts about this whole cross-gen thing, yes, there are bare minimum things that will dictate how a game, the memory constraints of a game will work within its finite memory pool. But people don't have to worry about this not pushing the upper Achilles of really good stuff. Returnal right now is my favorite PlayStation 5 game right now, and Horizon Forbidden West, Horizon Forbidden West dog walks it on every aspect. It's not even, there's a whole lot of amazing tech going on in Returnal. They're using two different engines to get their games going. They're using a proprietary thing, and they're using Unreal Engine 4, but if you compare Returnal to Horizon, it's like no contest.
Housemarque is a much smaller dev, though.
True.
I
True.
agree with
And
you. But I'm really proud of the work they did in this game, because when you look at the previous games, you're like, okay, I kind of see where they came from. But then you look at Returnal, and you're like, whoa. But I just want to jump in for a quick second. Thanks, Deezy. You and Leviathan brought up a really cool point that I kind of forgot about. And the Demon Souls remake, one of my favorite people on Twitter and favorite YouTubers, Lance McDonald, he does a lot of data mines and Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, does lots of cool videos. He discovered that some of the first screenshots of the Demon Souls remake were actually on the PS4. That game was running on PS4. So that totally makes sense at that point that you guys brought up, which is super wild to think about. The whole development of that game starts on the console that exists and that you have right now, and you kind of just max out the performance and the feature set on that technology, and then you're kind of anticipating what it can do on a future console, but you're just making sure that it to your point, runs as smooth as it possibly can on the current console generation. And that's such a wild thing to think about.
Yeah, and the total like performance also plays a huge factor in why some of these games like Returnal and Demon Souls doesn't have a PS4 version that released. Is like, take for example Returnal. It's 1080p is the internal rendering resolution at 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5. On the PlayStation 4 Pro, maybe you could get it running at like 900p 30 FPS, but the experience, like, they definitely built a PlayStation 4 prototype because they obviously you want to release on as many different PlayStation versions as possible because you want the biggest install base. So they definitely built a PlayStation 4 version of Returnal, but most likely, based off of the game design of what Returnal is, without the 3D audio, you lose a lot of the background information that you get while playing the game. So the gameplay has a decline. Like, it'll be a less enjoyable experience. There's a lot of depth in that game, so the added loading times would be a worse experience. And then you'd have to be 30 FPS, which 30 FPS for that kind of game would be more frustrating. So sure, they probably prototyped the PlayStation 4 version, but it probably was in such a state that they deemed that it wasn't worth pursuing all the way through to full production because the experience was downgraded enough that it wasn't enjoyable.
And it just wasn't the same game.
Yeah, because when you look at Returnal, it's primarily a sensual experience, isn't it? When I say sensual, I don't mean, you know, all that naughty stuff. I mean it was a feast for the senses. The audio, the particle effects. It primarily made the game. If you remove all of that and you're left with the stages, it's pretty bare bones. But it's the implementation of the DualSense. You know, this is I think a lot of things get lost under translation, right? From a lot of the fanboy community, right? Because Jim Ryan, he said, when we want games that take advantage of the PS5's hardware, be it the DualSense or the audio, the 3D audio or the SSD. So he didn't claim that every single game will rely on the gimmick of super fast throughput. Otherwise, every single game made would likely require super fast traversal. And not all games require super fast traversal. Not all games are should be designed specifically for that. You know, like Death Stranding, for example, isn't designed for super fast traversal until you get the zip lines. But you see my point, right? Rather than tying yourselves down to one game design, some game designs are just scalable, and you know, Horizon Forbidden West being one of them, and Gran Turismo evidently being one of them. And how we know that is they didn't decide to release it on the PS4 also until recently. That was a recent decision. And so, you know, go figure. Not every game has to, for the sake of being a next generation game, for the sake of being called a next gen exclusive, be a next gen exclusive. These games can run just fine on older hardware when scaled down. If, you know, for example, Horizon Forbidden West doesn't. The primary the pull of the first game wasn't the audio, and it was more kind of, you know, the visuals, but also the gameplay itself, like the stealth elements, the mechanics, the shooting giant robots. You know, if they could do that on the PS4, they can do it in this game.
Yeah. And if I could throw this out there, man, like honestly, man, dude, I couldn't even tell if that Returnal was running on 1080p. Honestly, I was like, oh shit, this shit almost looks like 4K, which is kind of fucking weird to me. But
I feel like most people didn't even notice that, to be honest. Like most people had to be told that it was running at 1080p. Like
that literally is it. And that's one of the reasons it baffles me sometimes too when gamers get into the whole thing about resolution, because these days resolution is really not it, right? It's all about image quality. And when we say image quality, we're talking about the texture density, the resolution of the textures that you're using. The resolution of that is actually what is going to resolve and give you a better image. So if you're giving somebody 4K textures and you're resolving your overall image at 1440p or 1080p, you're still going to get a very damn good thing because it's all being downsampled and whatnot, but it's still retaining at that level. You can help me out here. You're still retaining all that detail, and that's what really matters in everything else. Like resolution mattered more in the PS3 era because they weren't really going for high resolution things. They were going for screen resolution to fit, to have an image fit on a 1080p or a 720p screen. And most of the games on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 barely even hit a full 1080p or 720p. Very few games did that. Most of them were like these weird pseudo resolutions like 523p and bullshit like that. So you want the actual proof that that the industry is moving away from those arbitrary things. Look at reality, not reality, fidelity effects, super resolution. Look at what Epic's doing in Unreal Engine 5. They have their own tailor-made super resolution technique. You have Insomniac and their temporal injection technique, which upsamples things to simulate a 4K resolution. You have what Returnal is doing, what Housemarque's doing with their stuff. The industry is realizing that you can fake 4K and still look incredible. But as long as you're faking 4K, you're making sure that you're having better better internal image resolution versus screen resolution.
Well, it's reached the point now where, like, never mind super resolution, which is even more advanced, but DLSS 2.0 has a better image quality than native, and it's just it's crazy because there's no blurring during motion. So, and yet just a year ago, native image was literally the buzzword going around that it needs to be native 4K. Native 4K is best. Native is best. But in fact now they're making it better.
There are things that come with going for native resolutions. There's a sacrifice that you have to make, and that's something that you wanna have a native resolution, but like you really only need to be native. If you're going to go for full 4K, you need to have more than enough horsepower, I think, to go 4K and 60. That's my thing. So if you don't have any of those, if you don't have enough horsepower to do that, then you really shouldn't be chasing those kind of resolutions because it is a ton to render. It eats up your rendering time, and everything has to be rendered within a frame. So like, if you're trying to go for a 60 frames per second, you're rendering everything in 16.6 milliseconds. Mm-hmm. And if you're rendering in 120 frames per second, the new buzzword for this, how many 120 frames per second games do you have? You have to be rendering in 8.8 or 8.9 or something like that.
It's like
I gotta ask my code. But you got.
Oh, sorry.
You gotta render. No, you gotta render in those times, and it's a huge ask of any engine, of any CPU, any GPU to render stuff like that. So this is why you see these drastic introductions and these drastic inclusions of people using technologies to fake the 4K, to fake the higher resolutions, because there are easier ways. There are ways to use up the limited budget that you have to do certain things with. So like the gaming population or the fanboys for both the PlayStation and even the PC guys who rave about, oh, I get through this. I have this monster PC. But like, if you have monster PCs, you're using all your CPU and stuff like that to push frame rates, and you're probably turning on DLSS, or you're using AMD's new Fidelity Effects super resolution. And the reason being is because it's entirely too expensive to go for native, not when there are other things that can mimic it. So like, I'm looking forward to the day when the gaming culture could step away from the resolution and fixate on
Spec talk and all that other stuff.
exactly, just focus on the
It's
better
like
thing.
it really doesn't matter in terms of us as gamers.
Can you repeat that?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. But what? Yeah, repeat what you're saying.
Hey, by the way, Wooly.
Yes.
So I want to give a shout out to Salty as Gamer, man. Your boy, my dude too, man. He's fucking beating everybody's ass on the chat and shit, man. Damn, I don't know he was that savage, man. I swear to God.
Yeah, dude.
All right, sorry about that. Continue.
Salty delivering the fact bombs. Sorry, what were you saying, King Lamar? What was your point?
I was saying that in terms of whether the stuff about resolution and spec talk, that really doesn't really affect us as gamers, because most of the time we don't even notice. And that was my own point. We as console gamers don't really care about that sort of stuff. We just like to play the game.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up this point. Like, people are saying, with Horizon Forbidden West being a cross-gen title, well, what would make it more next-gen, guys? From what we've seen, right? Now, let me tell you, the first thing that stuck out in my mind was, oh shit, the foliage isn't really fully physics-based simulated. Like, it doesn't move around the body when she runs through it, and that really took me out of the immersion. That was my main gripe with what I saw. Call me fussy, I don't know. When I see vegetation, I have a real thing for that vegetation feeling believable and
react, right?
Reacting, exactly. So but then I heard that they've developed an entire separate mesh for the water system in the PS5 version. It's entirely different, the way that they've implemented water into the game.
Yep.
And that tells me that this work in progress is going to no doubt receive more of that exclusive to PS5 kind of stuff. So I hope, at least, I'll be disappointed if it doesn't, that the vegetation will be more.
So, I mean, like I said, these kind of games are an iterative process, and things change throughout the whole process, right? And eventually, like, despite we could use Spider-Man Miles Morales and Spider-Man Remastered as an example. The game we got at launch is so much different than what we have now. Like, right? They had pre-calculated muscle deformation that wasn't done in real time on the PS5. Now they're using machine learning to do those stuff, and those things are people going back and revisiting the code and doing things on a more granular level and seeing how they could improve these things. So like, what we really need to understand is, like, game development is constantly evolving, and there's always going to be, like, I saw it myself and I was just like, yeah, they still have the same foliage system, so to speak. But there are small aspects of things where they pick and choose what has physics, and that's a stylistic choice. The Decima engine is constantly evolving. So like, this is a first generation PlayStation 5 title. A second generation PlayStation 5 game from Guerilla is going to be heads and shoulders much better than what we're getting now. And what we got now already looks heads and shoulders over first gen titles that are already out, right? We've got Astros, we've got Destruction All Stars, we've got Demon Souls, and we've got Returnal. And this is, and you compare Horizon to Insomniac's first gen PlayStation 5 game, which is Miles, and you see just they're both open world titles, and you see how they've done open world games differently. And these kind of things will continue to get themselves better over time. And so like I wouldn't really sweat it if we get this at launch. They could that engine is
It's impressive. There's rumors that Bend Studios are utilizing the same engine, the Decima engine. But yeah, I mean, touching on like super resolution, what that's going to do in terms of how it's going to free up assets for developers is pretty insane. And we're just scratching the surface, guys. We're only 7 months into the generation, right? Into this console generation. So whilst all the outrage about the first batch of games being primarily cross-gen with a few, next-gen games, look at what we're getting in 5 days' time, Ratchet and Clank. I mean, if I'd say that's a true next-gen game, but even that is going to pale in comparison to what's coming out in 4 or 5 years' time. When devs are able to fully utilize this technology, it's primarily a software that's advanced, from my understanding. Software has gotten to a point where it's advancing so much it almost diminishes like the increase in sheer hardware power. It kind of negates it to a degree because it's just so advanced, like what we're getting with super resolution and machine learning. Those things are really going to be paving the way for freeing up the assets for games in 3, 4, 5 years time to be so crazy. Like we're not even prepared for what's coming. So I'm honestly not concerned. We also got to think of the pandemic, right? I mean, I'm seeing people say this is full on damage control, but come on, dude. This to me isn't damage control. This is just accepting reality. If you can't have the cake and eat it, if you really expect during a pandemic and unexpected shortages of PS5s to result in devs still all going all out 100% on only PS5 games, what's going to happen to all PS4 users who are invested in the PlayStation, I hate the word, ecosystem, right? They're going. You can't just give them scraps and expect them to stick around. So it's not only a basic business logical perspective to kind of continue to give the PlayStation 4 loyal user base quality leading up to the point where they finally are able to get their hands on the PS5. It's clever business, but it's also morally like kind of a wise decision too. And I mean, PS4 owners can't play Ratchet and Clank, arguably the greatest looking game ever made. I mean,
and they can't play Returnal either.
Exactly. So, and I'm hearing people say, "Oh, Returnal isn't a true next gen game." Then, I mean, come on, guys, keep that same energy. Keep that. They
said about a lot of PlayStation games.
Yeah. Keep that same energy then with Horizon Forbidden West when you say, what makes Returnal not a true next gen game, even though it's exclusive to next gen consoles? What makes Horizon a not a next gen game because it's cross gen? What it's like if you're saying that Returnal isn't a next gen game because even though it's exclusive to next gen hardware, you're picking and choosing when to kind of remain objective. Remain objective.
Demon's Souls.
Exactly. All these people that say these types of things, I'm just like, what?
It's like a PS3 game, like
they're like, oh yeah, Demon's Souls remake. Didn't that come out on PS3? It's like, yeah, that came out on PS3, and nobody played it because that was before any Dark Souls game came out, and that was their first game like that, and everyone hated it. But then it got word of mouth. But then PS3 was like long gone, and no one's gonna play that game on PS3. So it was an awesome remake.
And plus the fact that they changed almost everything about the original Demon's Souls for the PS5, and it's almost entirely a new game.
Well, I mean, to me, I mean, being someone who absolutely worshipped the original on PS3, they're extremely similar. I'm not going to say that they're completely different. No, in fact, they have the same coding when it comes to AI behavior.
You're exactly correct, and they left it that way because they didn't want to I don't want to get into that. But the point that I did want to make is I like for people who are making these arguments, I'm like, what games are you enjoying? Because it doesn't sound like you're enjoying any games. Like when I play
So
Returnal,
true.
that game is so awesome. As soon as you get control of the player, like you're like, damn, this game feels great. Like the
It
controls feel slick, they feel smooth, they're responsive. The game is like it's just pure insanity. And yeah, it's a difficult game, and you have to learn the mechanics of it. But like, at no point was I like, this would be better in 1440p or 4K. And I was not thinking that whatsoever. I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of things coming at me. This game
And
is
it's like the
intense.
game is just fun.
Yeah, I was
um,
having way too much fun. And all these people that are just like, they're just like crapping on these games because of a resolution or like some technical thing. And it's like, bro or person, what game are you what games are you
Like,
enjoying?
what are you playing? What are you?
Yeah, what are you playing? Like, I don't understand. Are you even having fun? If you're not having fun, get a ball and a stick and go play with that outside or something. Like, I don't know. Like, why are you even gaming if you're just gonna hate on every single game out there?
Yeah,
yep,
exactly. You know, I think about it too, man. Honestly, this whole cross-gen thing, it just makes no sense to me. I mean, you know, like it is what it is, man. Like, dude, honestly, I mean, cross-gen games are not. It's not a new thing, man. We've had that for a long ass time and shit. Like, and people are fucking making a big deal out of it, which is kind of strange to me. So it's like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. The
it
fact
Yeah,
is,
doesn't make
for
any sense.
every Returnal, right, you get a Miles Morales. For every Ratchet and Clank, you get, I don't know, a Horizon Forbidden West. For every God of War Ragnarok, you get a Demon Souls. To me, it's balancing out. So for us to get so many exclusive PS5 titles so early into the generation, when you consider the shortages of PS5s, I'd say Sony are doing a bloody good job. The fact remains here, guys, is it's undeniable, right? No matter how much you want to criticize this or call this damage control, the PS5 is currently the most supported console so, in the world. It's getting the most
Facts.
content. It's getting the most
Facts.
content. It's getting more content than PS4. It's getting more content than Xbox Series X or Xbox Series S or Xbox One. It's getting more content than flipping PC, unless you consider all the indie games that come out on Steam that are primarily rip-offs. In my opinion, you know, we're eating good. We're eating good. Ratchet and Clank is coming out in 5 days, and that is undeniably next gen. Things are being done in that game that cannot be done. That cannot be done on PS4. So with that out of the way, with that damage
PC.
control in
PC.
quotes, yeah, with that damage control in quotes out of the way, I think it's good that we look into something that
and actually,
you brought up, Leviathan. Go on, mate. Sorry, what were you going to say?
yeah. So Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart entered production around 2018, like late 2018. So after God of War 2, Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West. So that game started when they had a more clear picture of what the PlayStation 5 was going to be, because it's only been in development for about 2.5 years, like production wise, not the pre-production part. Actually,
Full
that's
production. Full production.
Yeah, full production is a good way to call it. So, actually, that does bring up something that I do want to bring up that is good about Insomniac, is having multiple IPs. Because for, say, a game like Horizon Forbidden West, they had to commit to a game design for that game before Zero Dawn was out and gamers could enjoy it. So that can be a good or bad thing, because when you do that, you can. A perfect example of a game that got screwed by this was Black Ops 4. Is Call of Duty Black Ops 3 had jetpacks, and people didn't like that. But Black Ops 4 was already in pre-production, so they.
Oh, you mean
already
Advanced Warfare? Advanced Warfare, right? They had the jetpacks.
Well, Black Ops 3 had the jetpacks that like had.
Oh, they did too. Oh shit.
Yeah, had the energy like bar for like sliding and like hovering. So people didn't like that in the Call of Duty community, And they committed to Black Ops 4 continuing with that even further and going even further into the future. And once they made that commitment, they had to reverse and start from scratch again. So Black Ops 4 didn't have a campaign and instead had to have a battle royale because they had to commit to a new game design very late in development and had to rush.
Yep.
And that game had the least amount of multiplayer maps in any Call of Duty game ever at launch. And that's just because they got screwed in that way. Insomniac gets around this and can release so many games because Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart entered pre-production after Ratchet & Clank came out in 2016. So they already got the feedback of what people did or didn't like about the game and knew the positive receptions that, okay, this is what we can do to make it great in our sequel. Meanwhile, the team that's working on full production was making Spider-Man. So they didn't have to worry about making massive changes to their design for Ratchet & Clank 2 because that game isn't coming for many, many years later. And that's how Insomniac is doing so well and able to release so many games so quickly.
They've got a very, very strong production pipeline, and shout out to Ted Price. I met that man in 2000. I think 2009. I think when it was at the launch party for A Crack in Time. That studio has something. They've one of the things that he said is the success of any studio is that you should always have your teams chomping at the bits for something. You should always have an idea to pitch and a game in production. You should always have a prototype ready that the team is all fired up about, and that's literally how they've been. That team had so many things going on. Like when I met them, they were already staffing up at that point for fewE or Overstrike 9 before it turned into fewE, and they were already working on Resistance 2 at that point. So like that team knows everything and how to work around tight schedules, and their company culture is just on the ball. So like they've always got a pitch. They've always got a pitch ready, and they've always got something cooking and brewing. So like, they have like maybe 25 people at a time that are constantly breaking off and splintering off mid-development cycle of a full project, working on something else. And that's in pre-production and going through small iterative designs for prototyping and just rapidly shoot out, to people to pitch. And their pitches, that's kind of how their IP got picked up by Microsoft for Sunset Overdrive. It was a little controversial thing that Drew Murray did. And that was it. Microsoft said, okay, we'll turn this into a full game and we'll give you guys the reins to keep your IP and whatnot. And that's kind of how it went. So like those guys are fully fucking efficient. So like, do not be surprised when, other things are popping up and like that team has something, they have something going. Like
they are just wizards, aren't they?
No, you look at their catalog. You look at their catalog, bro.
That's crazy, Deezy, because like it's crazy like how fast they pump out games. You know what I mean? They just come out. I'm like, oh crap, they're coming out with a new release. I'm like, oh shit,
bro. Like in the past 7 years, that team has released so many damn games. Like they've released 3 VR games, and they're all very freaking pretty decent VR games. For Vive and Oculus. They've released PlayStation games and they've released Xbox games, and this is all within the span of 7 freaking years. I mean, for every year they've had something going on. Like it's ridiculous.
They are the most OP purchase ever in the history of purchases. When you look at like what they were bought for, like less than 300 million, and what they are, I believe they're in 4 they're split into 4 teams, if I recall, and they are huge.
Four teams.
They're basically the size of a publisher. They really are.
Yeah.
They're the size of a full-blown publisher, and it's like a mini ZeniMax, although arguably, maybe ID aside, arguably better. ID are some of the best developers in the business as well. So, but yeah, I mean, they're basically publisher size. And you know what baffles me about this, what you're saying here, guys, and what you pointed out, Leviathan, about them starting development earlier on, just like literally around the release of Ratchet & Clank 2016, is even this game, in all its glory, in how mind-blowingly next-gen it looks and plays, and how the teleportation mechanic is so never before seen. Even this is not, I guess you could say, not designed specifically with full knowledge of the PS5's hardware in mind. And that being the case, they're only getting started. Insomniac remind me of like a kid with a toy, right? Because they released the machine learning deformation. Why? Because they just wanted to. Nobody was expecting it. Nobody asked for it. Nobody thought about it. We didn't even know that shit existed until Insomniac were like, oh, by the way, today we're releasing muscle deformation through machine learning. They're just sandboxing at this point. They're experimenting. They're seeing what they can do, and it's mind blowing, guys. It's mind blowing what they're going to be capable of in the future.
One of the hardest working studios right now.
And that's the thing, if I could throw out there, Insomniac, they ended up saying that they barely scratched the surface on the PS5. So, man, what are we going to get in the future, man?
He said, imagine in 2 to 3 years' time,
Yeah, if they can develop this, what you're seeing right now on this screen, without a PS5 even in their mind, without even knowing anything about it, imagine what they're going to be able to do release in 5-6 years' time when they've got the PS5 and they've had it from the get-go of development. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, and they had it when they made the modifications to the engine at the start of development. Because that's also the other thing is none of these engines are using the primitive shaders or mesh shaders in the next-gen consoles yet.
None of them are. None of them are using it. Not yet, anyway.
They're using it basically like the compute shaders that you could use previously. Right now, they're using it as just more efficient versions of that. They're not actually using it to its full potential.
So what you're describing, Leviathan, is a bit like upgrading your Peugeot to a Ferrari, but you're still limited by the road laws, and you've not yet taken it onto a racetrack.
Basically, most of the developers that I've spoken to, with their own things is what they've been tinkering is the geometry engine. They're using the rudimentary features of it, and more so they're doing deeper tinkerings with it, and the fruition that all that will come into fruition in like year 2, year 3 almost. So like what we're seeing now isn't, like I said, these are all first generation PlayStation 5 games. All the cross-gen stuff is getting them, all the cross-gen stuff right now is getting their feet wet, literally. So like I would not sweat, I would not, worry too much about what we're getting. So like both these consoles, the Series X and the PS5, they're gonna wow us in some really spectacular ways. And like people want to say, oh, the 12 teraflops. I'm like, well, there are other things underneath the hood of the PlayStation that's going to really equalize. And there are some things that I've seen that I won't talk about for the safety of devs and stuff but like there's a certain game from a Sony studio that is all I could say is this shit really is going to be spectacular, and
Holy shit.
yeah, it's going to be spectacular, and
You heard it first, guys.
yeah, it's their second party studio, and they've already worked with Sony a number of times, and the thing that they're doing with the second game is it's insane.
Oh shit! I know exactly what this is going to be. The Order 1886, right? It's got to be.
Whatever this game is going to, when this developer decides to show off this second game of theirs, it is going to wow y'all. And to that effect, this is using more of the advanced stuff. So like,
Geometry engine, cache scrubbers,
yeah,
all that shit.
They're going all in. And like, we really shouldn't stress about all the stuff. Like,
see,
they've got a number of
this
games
is why
coming out.
This is why I am so freaking proud and so grateful to have you, Leviathan, experts who know what's different aspects of this industry, and you have being a developer, you have direct insight into things that are going on that none of us know about. And yet what's ironic is that those who are inside on this, like yourself, have the least to be outraged about. You don't outrage. You're the quietest when it comes to outrage. And all us guys on the outside who don't know about this game, we've never seen it. We have no idea what's in store. We're all assuming that all of these things are going to be cross-gen titles. And I'm just like,
it's
guys.
year 1 and year 2, right? It's year 1 and year 2, guys. I mean, we don't need to jump the gun or anything. Like, this is standard business.
Cross-gen games has been happening for like generations now.
Facts.
It's like
this is standard business. First off, there is a 100 million. There's 100 plus million. There's 100 plus million PlayStation 4s, and there's 8 million PlayStation 5s.
Exactly.
The same, and there's these games started life on PlayStation 4, the cross-gen ones, and they also happen to have PlayStation 5 dedicated versions of these, and these dedicated versions will be taking advantage of the features, sometimes in a rudimentary way, and other times a little bit more advanced. And they'll use different techniques to do certain things, to make things a lot more to up the fidelity of it all. But like,
I'm just sitting here
cross-gen
waiting for
releases-
Elden Ring to be a real game.
the cross-gen phase, that these games are going to straddle between and draw the line, and that's fine. We had PS3 games that were cross-gen, straddling the line of PlayStation 4, and it's all there. So like, we don't need to stress. We don't need to send death threats to our favorite developers because we're disappointed about a game being cross-gen, or a game that was announced as full generation suddenly be delayed because they want to maximize
so much
profitability.
about Jim Ryan's quotes.
Like, let's get away from that, guys. Like, the quotes, like look, Jim Ryan is a suit. He's gonna say whatever the fuck he needs to say to sell these fucking consoles.
Facts.
So he'll say whatever he
Absolute
needs
facts.
to say to sell. And it's the same thing with Phil. And I think the only company that says absolute shit and just does their own thing is Nintendo.
Nintendo's that one company just does whatever they want.
They don't.
Nobody says it.
Nintendo doesn't say a damn word until they have to say a damn word, and even then, they're not saying anything, and they just do. So like, gamers just need to get away from the thing of falling in love with a figurehead and getting mad when a figurehead says something. The games are what's really matters, right? And like, even if your game is cross-gen, you're still going to get a PlayStation experience.
Let the games do the talking.
You're still going to get You're still going to get a PS5 experience from these things because they're going to be tapping into the PlayStation 5 in unique ways that the PS4 versions just simply won't touch. Do not slag off and disrespect developers about your game being cross-gen, but then simply asking for them and then harassing them at the same time for a 60 FPS patch
Consider
for a
this.
game that came out. You know,
Fucking
like
weird, man. How
cons-
some people are.
don't do that,
Or don't
guys.
shit
Yeah.
on all these developers and then not play games. Like,
Yeah,
dude,
don't
like
do that,
all these people
guys.
are like, he lied to us. Who gives a shit? Just play the game that you want to play. Like, I want to call OG out, and it's just like, why are you bringing up shit about the PS3? Who cares? Who cares that these games are cross-gen? Find a developer you like and find some games that you like and start fucking playing some games. Like, just do
Exactly.
that. Like,
And that's the
enjoy
thing
them.
that's the thing that bothers me too sometimes, man. It's like when people are like going around talking about other games, bashing on them, and then all they do is play Call of Duty or like a Battlefield or like a FIFA or some shit like that. What the fuck are you talking about other games, man?
Yeah,
Just shut
but
your mouth,
guys,
you're not gonna play shit.
and not just that, but there are things that you gotta think a developer or somebody with computer programming expertise and knowledge. So primarily directing this at Deezy and Leviathan. When they have the knowledge that they have, their perspective on the things that we are or many people are outraged about is completely different. Now, for example, take Hitman 3, right? And Leviathan blew my mind in this kind of with this perspective, because he got a lot of hate and a lot of flack, even though he speaks so highly of PlayStation, and he's just earlier on he was saying to me the PlayStation 5 as a fact can do things that the Xbox Series X couldn't, and we could argue that's common knowledge, but even though he has that opinion, he's also been very, very fair towards Xbox, and he doesn't really get involved in this console war nonsense. And I asked him about Hitman 3 and why Hitman 3 is performing better on the PS5, and he went, well, actually it isn't. It's a smoother experience, yes, but it's not more performant. And I asked him why, and he said because the PS5 is probably averaging roughly 63 or 64 FPS and not budging during high rasterization intensive alpha asset intensive scenes, like for example the foliage in that field, right? Because the PS5 just so happens to handle that shit far better because of its GPU clock speed, and it's a giant boost and a real boon for things that are rasterization focused and intensive. Am I right so far? I'm on the right track, Leviathan? Yeah.
Hitman 3 stresses things that favor the Series X more, which is why it has a higher resolution on the Series X. It's just the design of the game engine.
But explain the dramatic dip on the Xbox Series X, and this is what I'm trying to get at. You explained why, because people are arguing that the PS5 could run at a 4K native resolution, because it doesn't dip in that one area. But you kind of informed me otherwise, and this blew my mind because it changed the way that I look at how games run and how consoles work, so to speak.
Yeah, so different workloads have different stress that'd be put on elements of a game. So like, for example, grass puts substantially more stress on the rasterizers of your GPU and the ROPS, as well as your raw compute power. So when you have a lot of like grass textures in your game, it can tank performance. So for the PlayStation 5, it will tank the performance less compared to the Series X, which takes a far greater hit. So although like the average FPS, so like if you set both the PlayStation 5 and Series X unlocked frame rates in Hitman 3 at native 4K, the Series X will run a little higher, but it will dip much harder once you enter those areas because those are more clock speed intensive sequences.
And that's
it's just the difference in how the rendering of glass versus say like mirror. Like it's just the difference between say grass
and that explains why the PS5 version is a lower resolution, because on average the PS5 runs at a lower, is slightly less performant, except for areas where that the PS5 specializes in, where it outperforms the Xbox Series X. But that's specific areas in that game, in that one game. So a lot of people running with the narrative, well, and I was one of them. I was one of these guys. Well, if the PS5 can easily cakewalk the Xbox Series X in this level, then why isn't the PS5 running at a native 4K but the Xbox Series X is? It makes no sense. But as you said, well, actually, the Xbox Series X is running at above 60 at a 4K native resolution, but it tanks in high restoration areas like the grassy area, whereas the PS5 is probably running at 57, 58 FPS in 4K. So they've lowered the resolution, but it handles that high restoration area.
Yeah, and that's to that credit. It's simply because of how the clocks work within both consoles. The PlayStation has, like they say, the shifting clock, design paradigm to it, and that paradigm under load will drop a few things, will drop a few frequencies and power to stabilize things, and then when it needs stuff, it'll pull the CPU. It'll pull from the CPU to the GPU and back and forth, and that higher clock speed that it could hit enables rasterization to move that much faster per frame. So in areas like Lev said, where rasterization comes into play, the PlayStation 5, because of its higher clock speed, runs these cycles that much faster, and they're able to redo these cycles much faster on every frame. So like, it's not taking a hit to rasterization, because rasterization, when it's hitting its max clock speed due to the smart shift technology, it's running it up to 33% times faster. And that could be a boon for a game engine that specializes within rasterization, versus the static clock of what you find in a Series X. And so like, what people need to understand, which is why people are like so puzzled when they see the PlayStation 5 outperforming the Series X and them trading blows, it all comes down to how game engines react and how they're specifically designed on these consoles. And like, Hitman's engine actually, IO's engine actually works a lot better on Xbox, because of just how they code things, and it's multi-threaded. But like, certain aspects of their engine will work a little bit better on PlayStation, because there's certain things that they use more rasterization for. So like,
Yeah, and another good example is the RE engine. Is historically it used to favor PlayStation better, just the PlayStation API better. Up until Resident Evil 8, they've now optimized. So like, it even comes down to like API optimizations as well. It's not even just hardware related. Like, it's the full stack of just minor differences can lead to dramatically different results, and that's why these consoles just trade blows. It's so much variance that you can see like 50% performance swings from game to game.
Yeah.
All this stuff is really, really impressive to just listen to. Like, for me, honestly, when it comes between these two consoles, like, I don't know, like, I don't like to make a big deal out of it. For me, there has just never been a game that, like, even when Xbox One X came out, and that was touted as the most powerful console out at the time, and I was like, okay, well, where's the game that shows that off? And all of the games that were available on both platforms, there was no performance difference that just made it look like the other one was like not even worth playing. And then that was the point that I always make to people. I'm like, why do you keep like just listing off these specs when like they play almost like identical, and there's some dips like here and there? And again, I'm speaking as like a pleb, as somebody who's not in the technical side. But like when I watched Hitman, like people always shoving that in my face. They're like, "Well, look at Hitman 3. Look at the comparison between the PS5 and the Series X version." And then they're like, "Look at all that 30% more shadow detail." And I was like, I don't give a shit. It's like, is the game any good? Like, I don't know. They both look good to me. And it's like, if they like, for me, the biggest thing is if they're both playing at like 60 frames per second, awesome. But if like one console was able to play it at 60 and the other one I can only do 30, that would be a huge increase where I'd be like, okay, it's clearly more playable on the other console than that one that only runs it at 30. I don't know how the rest of you feel about that.
I mean,
Yeah.
in a situation like that, oh, go on, Lev. Go on.
Yeah, so for me personally, because of I tend to prefer arena first-person shooter games as my favorite type of game genre, specifically. So most of those games are very old. Like the biggest game that I played in 2020 was Halo Combat Evolved, and it's been about 25 hours since I last played Halo Combat Evolved. So I don't give a shit about like graphics really. I care way more about the actual gameplay itself. But that's just me personally.
Well,
Exactly.
I've just seen Carlos Eduardo, shout out to you, sir, mention Red Dead Redemption 2. I found that game boring as fuck. So, you know, each to their own, and it, you know, graphics are great, but the gameplay has to back that up. That's why I wasn't the biggest fan of Horizon Zero Dawn. Don't hate me, guys. I wasn't. I've always been vocal about that. It let me down because I found elements to the gameplay quite shallow. The bare bones stealth mechanics, the climbing was just move forward. But with this game coming out, Horizon Forbidden West, they seem to have really addressed a lot of those gripes that I had. For example, you know, the free climbing mechanic hasn't been showcased yet, but I'm guessing that's really special. That's like Assassin's Creed on drugs, right? And I'm looking forward to seeing Aloy just clamber up, you know, trees and rocks like with finesse with finesse and skill is awesome, and something I'm really looking forward to. And they also said, and this is just a hunch, guys, but based on how they worded it, they said we know that flight is one of the, if not the most requested feature for it to be added in Horizon Zero Dawn sequel. We cannot confirm nor deny this feature exists. Stay tuned for more info. Now, the fact that they acknowledged it is the most requested and asked for feature pretty much guarantees in my mind that they've implemented it. They wouldn't have said it if they haven't. So you can expect flight in the game, in my opinion. And that being said,
Speculation, but
it's speculation in my opinion. It's completely my opinion. It's just speculation, but you know, I'm pretty confident about it by how they worded it. So sorry, Lev. Back to your point. You don't give much care about graphics because you're addicted to Halo.
Yes, it's been 25 hours since Combat Evolved, my 2020 game of the year. So. Yeah, it's just based off of preference of what kind of games you like to actually enjoy playing and what experience you can actually have on that hardware. So like for me personally, I don't really have much motivation to buy a Series X or PS5 right now because the benefits that I get on a PlayStation 5 for me personally is they don't really have any games in my genre for me to play, so I'd just be playing Doom. I'd have to purchase the PlayStation 4 version of Doom Eternal and play that instead of playing it on Xbox. And if I get a Series X, the only experience games I'll get is Master Chief Collection will be able to run at 120 FPS, and it'll fix some of the CPU bottlenecks on Halo 5's gameplay experience. But those are minor things for me personally.
Not really warranting a purchase. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
and I think that's a legit reason. It's just like the games that you play are available on your PC and you're enjoying them. And it's like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like you should just keep playing on PC.
Mhm.
When
Play where
yeah,
you're happy, but you don't
like
need to bash and denigrate people over it, right? So like,
exactly, like people who do the whole PS5 versus Xbox Series X thing, it's just like, just tell me like you like Halo and you like Gears, and that those games are not available on PS5, and that's why you went with your purchase.
I feel
and I'd
like
be yeah.
I feel
I'd be
like
like,
this should
fair.
be I feel like this should be called the Company of Heroes podcast, because you guys are awesome. Yeah, I'm loving this. I'm absolutely lapping this up. By the way, I'd never gave King Lamar an intro. I do apologize, my brother. It's good to have you with us, and thank you for jumping on. Sorry about the confusion before, about you not being able to get into the podcast. So thank you for joining us. Lamar, you there?
I think he muted.
Oh, well, I see.
I think he's running out.
But appreciate you, brother.
I'm here.
No worries. So yeah, sorry about that, dude. But thank you for jumping in, and yeah, it's awesome.
It's all good. I just didn't know that you was doing it on Discord. The last time we did this, we was on StreamYard, I think.
Yep.
So I didn't get the memo.
It's undergone quite a drastic. I've spent, I would say, 16 hours in the last 3 days trying to get my head around all of this software. If you could see my PC screen right now, and if it wasn't for Salty coming to the rescue, I just called him and I was like, dude, I need your help. And he was like, right away, brother, show me your screen. And he was walking me through it all. So thank you again, Salty, for that. But expect definite facelift, guys, because I'm quite happy with how clean this looks. But it could be better. There's always room for improvement. So expect a facelift, expect progress, and this podcast will build. But there have been some freaking gems that you guys have brought up tonight. Some parts of it gave me absolute goosebumps. I just felt like damn, it's everything I could have hoped this podcast to be, and it's awesome. I'm not saying it's over yet. I'm just saying a big thank you. So, but yeah, Leviathan and Sev, is there anything that you? Is there anything that you want to address about how on earth they're going to? Digital Foundry aren't sure how Horizon Forbidden West is going to be able to scale to PS4.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about that?
I think when they say that, they're literally just thinking on the way that this is not to misquote them or anything, but I think when they're saying that, they're just literally looking at how well they've been able to push the Decima engine on the PS5. But I think they're pretty much an acknowledgement that this game, for it to run in any way possible, they're gonna have to be, this game has had started life on the PlayStation 4. And I strongly believe, and I'm pretty sure, Mathis Dejon, the producer, said that this game also started life on the PlayStation 4. Like I said, there's different rendering techniques, different things that they've introduced to get these games to perform at 30 frames per second on the PlayStation 4 and PS4 Pro. And there are things that they're using that's different on PlayStation 5 because the hardware is just much more robust. So I think the brilliant folks at Digital Foundry, I think they're just flabbergasted at how gorgeous and how things have been pushed to 11 with the Decima engine.
It is wizardry, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's literally, even I said it when, after I saw it, I said during that sequence where the Tremor Tusk was knocking shit over and kicking up sand, and all the particle effects were just all over the place while it was shooting at Aloy, and she's running it and sending on the glider, the shield wing. I literally said, "Oh, the PlayStation 4 is literally just gonna cough up a lung," but like, that's literally just that's literally just me marveling at how smooth the thing is, and then thinking, oh, that's right, this is a PlayStation 4 game. So
I wonder how that's gonna run.
yeah, but like when you take the rose tinted goggles off and you just start to think about it, then you're just like, all right, this is this is of course a PlayStation 4 game. There's a PlayStation 4 version of this game, and it's gonna look fine, simply because um, that's the version that they started out with, right? Like, I don't think any Sony developer, I don't think we could, I don't think any developer for Sony can really look and say we're gonna ship a cyberpunk. Um, like, and I don't think anybody that's a fan of PlayStation or any person out there would look at
Can
Sony's
expect that.
incredible, and yeah, nobody in Sony's incredible thing could look at the incredible slate of games that we've had since PlayStation 4 came into its own and say that we're gonna get a shitty experience on PlayStation 4 now, simply because they're pushing things to 11 on PlayStation 5. Like, people were so worried about Spider-Man Miles Morales not being good or anything on PlayStation 4 because there was this everything was being shown on PlayStation 5. But like, you think about it, we're in the next generation thing. You're always going to want to show the PlayStation 5 version, right? You're always going to want to show your latest and greatest. And Sony's
And I
credit to
really
Sony,
think
yeah, to Sony's credit, they're gonna create the same level of performance we've expected from late generation PlayStation 4 titles. We're gonna get those because that's just the engine is there. There's always tweaks going on, and there's a dedicated team of engineers to make sure that they're not overstepping their budget with stuff. So like, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I expect what's going to end up happening is it's going to be like how Battlefield 4 was on the PlayStation 4 versus PlayStation 3. So what they did in development is they took, like, they had their LAD 0, their up close level LAD, they removed it. They took LAD 1, which was the further away character models, and made that the new LAD 0. So I suspect they're going to do something like that for the PlayStation 4 version. Instead of using the max quality assets, they're just going to shift it down one. And then that will save on geometry across the entire game. That's a quick and easy way. Sure, it'll look a little worse, but it's still going to look better than Horizon Zero Dawn did. And based just off of
and probably play better.
Yeah, it'll probably have the same resolution and frame rate because, like, I did some rough math and it came out that the PlayStation 4 version of Forbidden West should be around 1080p 30, somewhere around there, maybe a little lower. So
yeah, they could introduce dynamic resolution scaling, but I don't know how well that would work for the engine how it is now.
I'm right in saying, aren't I, guys, that the primary GPU related assets are mostly scalable. Anything GPU related isn't really a problem when it comes to cross-gen, because unless the game looks absolutely hideous. Whereas the primary issues are like CPU related, like physics, AI. There are things that can be done that could be done in Horizon Forbidden West that take more advantage of the PS5 CPU that wouldn't be featured in the PS4 version. I'm guessing the water dynamics may be one of them, but is there more? Do you reckon?
Water, yeah, I'd say the water is the water interaction with Aloy and how it's rendered and how things are physically interacting underwater is definitely takes a beefy fucking CPU to do. So like these Zen 2 cores are running laps, literally running laps around the PlayStation 4 CPU. So like when they said they had to come up with a different solution when coming up with how to do underwater things, they really had to sit long and hard because they never had all they had for the original Horizon was a water mesh, but that water mesh was literally just like, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's funny. It's funny when you look at how they do things and they simulate the ripples and whatnot, but like it was literally just used for the rudimentary um, hiding away from humans, and that was what the stealth that was what they used it for. And there really wasn't much else to it, so like they literally had to go back and rethink and come up with these creative solutions for underwater stuff, and make sure it's not memory intensive because you know their budget they're on their budget constraint about how much of the world they can render as well, and they never had that budget.
Yeah,
They had that budget. They never knew how to.
I'm really excited about, you know, The Last of Us 2 had an analog stealth mechanic that had never really been done before. I mean, MGS3, I guess you could argue, was kind of analog, but it wasn't analog in the sense that the literal parts of your body that are in line of sight add up to maximum, like add up to a total amount of visibility and what they can see. So it gave this real believability to the stealth that was so immersive, and that must have absolutely brought the PS4 to its knees, and that's why it was barely making 28 frames a second. You know, even on the PS4 Pro, it was struggling because it was CPU related, I'm guessing. So I'm looking forward to things like that happening, more dynamic, more analog, more realistic and immersive elements to animal behavior and to stealth and to shit like that that's going on in the world that can only be done with next gen hardware. But in the meantime, do you see? I have a question for Leviathan as well from the chat.
By the way, Willie. Hey, sorry, nice meeting you, Leviathan, and Sir Deezy, Lamar, you're my dude. Wooly, you're always my dude, man. Yo, sorry guys, but I gotta fucking take the road real quick. I'm gonna go watch this stupid ass fight between Mayweather and
All right,
Paul,
mate.
man. The dumbest shit, man. Like, but you know what? I'm gonna go watch that.
Willie,
you
check
take
this
care,
out.
buddy.
We've got Kid Smooth in this.
I know,
in this
Kid Smooth. Shout out to you, sir.
And he's giving you a compliment. So shout out to that dude.
You know, I call Kid Smooth a frenemy. I don't know if you would agree, but I really like the guy. He's got a shtick. He sticks to it. He sticks to it, I'd say. And he's definitely the best entertainer, or certainly one of them on YouTube. He is the best bot. So, and I've always said that. I'm not licking his ass. So shout out to you, Kid Smooth.
Hey, Willie. Hey, you know, offense to Kid Smooth. Like, you know, I do talk shit to him. I talk to him sometimes, but you know, he does have that bright personality. You know what I mean? It's just he has fun. So
yeah,
you know, man, dude, more power to him. I have nothing against him and shit, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, take care of my dudes, Leviathan and Deezy, man. Hey, nice meeting you, brother. And
nice meeting you too.
I'll drop your info. I'll drop your info below, brother. Take care. Enjoy the fight.
Hold on. I'm just gonna give my outro. You can follow me at Gaming Despair on Twitter and Gaming Despair on PSN. So you guys can follow me there. I'm usually trophy hunting. I got 121 platinums and 7,000 trophies. You know, I usually just game. Oh, and by the way, just to throw this out there, if anybody needs help trying to get the platinum for The Last of Us, multiplayer factions, I could help you. I'm your guy. All right? All right, guys. Sweet. Chill out, man. Take care, man. Peace out.
All right, peace.
We'll be closing up shortly, but I've just got a question for Leviathan in a second. But I was going to say, before I ask the question, is there anything that you see or would like to see that CPU related regards to, like, hypothetically speaking, Horizon Forbidden West or in any other game that would take more advantage of next gen hardware that you couldn't do on current gen?
So the big thing for me in terms of CPU is animation work. That's the biggest thing that's preventing me from like getting immersed in a lot of games. Like Game World is, I can see the cracks in like, the environment where it's just it looks fake to me because nothing is going on. It feels like The best way to describe it is a
You want
more
real
prettied
world.
up version.
You want real world simulation.
Yep.
And
I w-
the CPU runs the simulation. So you want interactivity between the wind and the fabric on the clothes, the hair on clothes, the hair on people, the hair on the body. You want the subtle nuances that show up. When a character touches something um, as small as like a rope, and the rope moves a certain way, or a quick nudge against the table doesn't just feel like you bumped into a block, but you bumped into a table that actually has its own little physics. Those are things that'll get better over time, and there will be studios that target those things specifically. That all comes a part of the game design when you're in pre-production. A game, when you're pitching a game and everything, you got to distill it down to the minutia of what it is, and then you compound on it for however what you want the scale to be. So like, everybody's Naughty Dog has a impeccable attention to detail. So like those people obsess over the small minutia of things, and they push every aspect of the hardware to make sure that they get the level that they want. And
I was going to say,
they're going to do that even more.
Sorry,
yeah,
carry
they're
on.
going to do that even more. Yeah, they're definitely going to do that even more. So like, for me, I want to see game. For me, I'm a guy who loves story, and I'm a guy who loves realistic characters and realistic character behaviors. I want to see the small twitches in the eyes. I want to see the small wrinkle or muscle devolution, or concave or convexing in a body when somebody feels a little bit off or unsure. In a story-based game. So like shit like that will get me into a game much more. So like I'm looking forward to developers, the really talented ones who design a game around interrogation or whatnot, and they exploit that system. Maybe Eleanor too, Rockstar and their attention to detail. Maybe they'll be able to create something that uses the CPU to do something crazy like that. But like that's the canvas is bigger with these consoles, and like how we're gonna see these developers use these things is like the most exciting thing for me, because the gameplay is also gonna come, and like ultimately that's the bread and butter. But like if you want to ask any developer the things that excites them, it's these little nuanced things that they couldn't do before because the CPUs were limited. They could always push graphics. They could always push the ray tracing and everything else like that. But like, it's.
I was gonna say I loved the Tomb Raider that released in 2013, but I couldn't stand Rise of the Tomb Raider or Return of whatever it was called, the sequel, purely because
I tried playing the two many games.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get into it.
The problem with me is between the release of the first and the second, I played Uncharted 4, and it ruined, absolutely destroyed Tomb Raider for me, because the animations felt, to me, 10 years behind compared to what I just played. And so
that's an effect. That's an effect Naughty Dog has.
So I'm looking
the literal Naughty Dog effect.
So we're looking now for the next thing, and the next thing is coming. It's not arrived just yet. I mean, Ratchet and Clank is a glimmer. It's just a glimmer, because all the software that's coming out hasn't even arrived yet. And when I mean software, I mean super resolution. I mean machine learning being fully utilized. I mean they're just scratching the surface, guys. They're scratching the surface. We cannot stress enough. Like, speaking to you, Leviathan, today, and you, Sev, I appreciate it's so late, so we're gonna cut this soon. It's just been an absolute eye-opening experience and an absolute joy, like for all of us here listening in. I'm sure I can speak for everyone in the chat here. The insight and the things that you guys have said has helped us to appreciate, like in a different perspective, the games that we play and the games that we see, and that's what I want this podcast to be. I want it to deepen our respect, not just for the games themselves, but for the developers and our whole mindset towards this entire console war, I guess you could say. It really puts things into perspective, and you've done that tonight, so thank you so much. One question for you, Leviathan, from the chat, which I was asked, would you answer? Hi Wooly, this is from Seinu.com. Hi Wooly, can you ask Lev, does RAM speed have an impact on frame rate?
Yeah, but it really depends on where your bottlenecks. So latency is a huge issue, and keeping good like CPU and GPU performance. So say you send a request to RAM to bring, say, a texture into the GPU because you want to use it. There's latency from the GPU performing that calculation, determining I need to go get from RAM that texture. Then there's the physical distance of sending the electrical signal out the bottom of the GPU chip into the motherboard, and then going into the RAM chip, and then based off of the RAM chip speed, there's latency there between receiving a request for a memory location and then being able to spit that back out the other end and send it back to the GPU. So like RAM speed matters in that regard. So it can create bottlenecks there. So it'd be the CPU and GPU underperforming, but the reason they'll be underperforming is because the RAM prevented you from having data, so they just idled and didn't do anything for a bunch of clock cycles. Does that make sense?
It really does. And I tell you what, go on, what were you going to say?
No, I was just saying that.
Yeah. So guys, that must be a signal. Lev, your temperature must be quite hot, dude, because that mic's kicked in again. But we could still. You sounded like a Dalek, but we could still hear everything that you said, and that makes a lot of sense about the sending of information and the times between. It's interesting to know how the SSD of the PS5 can be fully utilized when really pushed to its limit to act almost as RAM, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, it's all good stuff, guys. It's been awesome, and I'd say tonight is this is a good time to call it, if you guys agree. But shout out to the panel for just an awesome show. Shout out first of all to Fornatron. He's gone now, but you guys can follow Fornatron on Twitter @Fornatron, and that's it. That's literally it. I'll post all the descriptions below. And Gaming Despair as well, who left enjoying the match. Leviathan Gamer, my dude, it's been humbling and awesome and insightful. Where can we find you, my guy?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter @LeviathanGamer2 because I couldn't get Leviathan Gamer 1.
Awesome. Leviathan Gamer 2. I'll be sure to update that in the description below. Leviathan Gamer 2. And yeah, you're a regular panel member here as well. What a freaking privilege to have. If you want to know more about the things that we've discussed tonight, guys, and if you want this on a regular basis, then you know which podcast to tune into every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Same with Deezy, who will be able to make it whenever he can, aka Sev. He's in Scotland right now, so it's just as late for him as it is for me. It's 3:05 in the morning, and my guy Sev, I'm so grateful, brother, that you decided to be part of this at the early hours of the morning, even though you've had a very knackering day working on your video game and it's been stressful and tiring, yet you took the time out to educate us all and to share this podcast with me, the panel, and all the chat. So thank you so much. Where can we find you, my dude?
Wooly, thank you so much for having me, man. It's been an honor, honestly, and I thank everybody for listening in. Really appreciate it. You guys can find me at on Twitter at ExpSevDavis, and you can be sure to follow our studio at Fireslug Studios on Twitter. Yeah, join us every Sunday. I won't be able to join every Sunday, but I'll be there most of the time. And yeah, I look forward to doing this with you, Wooly, and everybody else. More Lev, it's a pleasure to actually be on air with you, and we could listen to you give us even deeper feedback as a engineer within computer science. So it's been grand, and yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, man.
My heart is full of
being on with you.
My heart is full of rainbows right now. I tell you, I'm so freaking. I'm absolutely buzzing, guys. King Lamar, where can we find you, my dude? Thank you for jumping in.
No problem. No problem. I hope to continue to be here. But you can find me at the Humorous Elman on Twitter and also on YouTube, like sometimes stream. I tried streaming Saturday, but technical difficulties. So hopefully Monday, because this week Guilty Gear Strike comes up. Streaming that. So yeah.
Awesome. I shall type
you.
Me. Is it HUMOUR or just OR?
OR.
OR. There you go. The Humorous Elman on Twitter. I shall put your link here in the chat. So follow these guys. They're all legends. I'm sure most of you already follow these guys anyway. But yeah, it's been emotional, and truly shout out to Saltiest Gaming again for helping me out with all of this. Thank you so much for supporting, guys. The support has been immense. I've gained 30 subscribers in literally an hour, so it's crazy. I'm very appreciative, and for all your support. The chat tonight has been amazing. Even got a compliment off Kids Move. Now I tell you, that's a testimony to how awesome you guys have been in the panel tonight. So
getting a compliment from
Smooth, I know, that's like
rare.
a knighthood. So on that note, guys, it's been awesome, and we will see you all next time. And I sounded like Young then. And peace. Thank you ever so much again. Take care.
Ciao, guys.